Where do you stand when it comes to retirement planning? When I ask that question, typically people say one of three things. Typically they'll say option A and they'll say, I have no idea if I can retire. Or option B, they'll say, I think I can retire. Or option C, they'll say, I know I can retire. So in this video, we're gonna break down option A and talk about those of you that are not sure or don't think you'll be able to retire. Hi everyone, I'm Logan Sadler. For those of you that haven't stopped by the channel yet, thank you for doing so. On this video, we're gonna talk about those of you who are not sure if you'll be able to retire. So typically when I'm sitting down with somebody or we're meeting with somebody, a lot of what we wanna talk about with the client is typically, it's not always financial. A lot of people think when it comes to retirement planning, obviously you gotta have money to do so, income to do so, all of that. But in today's video, I really wanted to talk about all of the characteristics that go into knowing if you're eligible to retire or if you'll be able to retire. So let's go into that. Typically, I start off with the question, how do you envision retirement? That may sound kind of a weird question for me to ask, but believe it or not, it typically unpacks a lot. What I mean by that is a lot of us envision retirement differently. I have a lot of clients that are very successful. They make really good money. They have great careers. They have really good incomes, all of that. And their retirement might be extremely extravagant, right? They might want to go back and forth to their lake house or take multiple trips to Hawaii, or however they envision it, it might be very active. I have a lot of other clients where even if they did make good money or not, a lot of them don't want to do much of anything in retirement. They just want to not wake up early. They want to sleep in, right? They want to enjoy things. And a lot of them tend to reduce lifestyle when it comes to retirement. So a lot of that conversation is centered around how do you envision that? I always tell people that there is, kind of two spectrums there. Some clients, have a bucket list, right? Where they're transitioning into retirement and they're going to be doing a lot of the things that they weren't eligible to do or available to do during working years, right? They had a lot of stuff going on, raising kids, the whole bunch. So in retirement, you really want to know, number one, how do I intend to envision that? We sit down with clients, and I really think if you have a financial advisor or haven't had one yet, that's really what the conversation should be centered around before we ever really get into investments or net worth or any of that type of stuff. You really want to understand, how are you envisioning retirement, right? Is it, for a lot of us, we don't understand that it might be a 5 or a 10 or a 20 or maybe even a 30 plus year period of time that we're going to have to plan for. The most efficient way I've seen things be done when it comes to personal and lifestyle choices, typically the ones that stay active typically have, not a more enjoyable retirement, but I mean, they typically have a healthier retirement. They typically stay active longer. And again, that doesn't mean you're getting up and running, 5 miles a day in your 80s, but it just means those of us that have a purpose, something to wake up to, charities, golfing, traveling, hiking, whatever it tends to be, you really want to kind of center in on what it is you envision that retirement to be. That is typically what I start with the first conversation is, how do we envision this next step in our retirement journey? Then number two, that gives us a really good understanding, right? As you are thinking about all that, a lot of that stuff I said cost money, right? So when I'm talking about traveling, when I'm talking about vacations, I'm talking about eating out, I'm talking about all that stuff, it comes down to income. There's a lot of variables that go into income planning and cash flow planning. A lot of us might have saved very well for retirement, and we might be able to do whatever we want to do, essentially, so to speak, within reason in retirement. And some of us might not be able to do nearly as much. You have no idea what you'll be able to do if you haven't really had that conversation of what you wanted to do. So now that we're in step two, typically we're talking a lot more about financials. Now we're understanding, how much have we put away? What type of income streams do we have coming in? Do we have pensions, Social Security, right? How old are we? What's our health like? And we're getting a lot of those pieces put together, because I always tell people, when you're looking at how much income you had during your working years, you can kind of get a rule of thumb off that. Now, I don't always go by rule of thumb, right? We're all a little bit different and unique, but the general one to go by is typically, let's say you're making $100,000 per year. The other thing I want to look at as well is, how much of that are you going to need in retirement? Well, now that we've centered in on what type of lifestyle we're expected to have, most of us need somewhere in that 70 to 80% of what our working income was in retirement. So again, if we're making $100,000 a year, at our job, maybe you're a nurse or a doctor, a lawyer, construction worker, whatever it was, that $100,000 a year, you might need $70,000 to $80,000 per year when it comes to retirement. Okay, so that's a good way to base it off of. Now, again, some of us might need more than that. Some of us might need a lot less. I have some clients, they envision retirement sitting at home watching the news, right? So that doesn't cost much money at all, but it really depends on a few variables. How much debt do we have? Do we still have a lot of debt? Do we still have a mortgage? Do we just buy a new truck, right? A new trailer? All of those things go into those accounts where we're looking at how are we going to be able to retire, what types of income will we have coming in, and to see if that is even feasible into retirement. The other thing that we want to talk about after we've done all this, we've talked about a couple different variables there. Income, we've talked about personal life, right? What we're going to do. The third variable I love to talk about is what are our expectations and what are our concerns, right? Now that we're setting on this journey, I always talk about on our radio show, I talk about those of us that are a pilot or flown on an airplane before, right? We've traveled Southwest or United or wherever it was. A lot of the times before they ever get in the air, they've already went over their flight plan, right? They already know what this journey is going to look like, whether it's a 2-hour flight or a 10-hour flight or whatever they got. They have kind of charted out their course of where they're going to go, talked about maybe bad weather along the way, all of that stuff, right? Unexpected turbulence. So you need to do the same thing in retirement. You should really, before you get into retirement, now that we know how we envision it, what assets we have to work with, now we got to look at what our expectations are and what our concerns are moving forward and what things could get in the way. That's talking about, market volatility could be one of those things. Are we too heavily weighted into the market? Do we not have enough cash flow guaranteed coming in through pensions, Social Security, annuities? And have we covered long-term care and things like that that might come up down the road unexpectedly? So I think those are three of the kind of areas you should be able to kind of have that conversation around to start to have that idea. Okay, I had no idea if I could retire. Now I have somewhat of an idea. A lot of us might be like, well, perfect, I'm way on track. I could retire tomorrow if I wanted to. Some of us might be, well, I still have more to do. And I'll leave you with the last part. One of the biggest things I think a lot of people don't realize when planning for retirement to know if they're ready or not, or even close to, is it also is a personal choice. You also have to know that it's right for you and your spouse. If you are married, I think it's a very big conversation to have because it's something that you guys are going to be going into together. It's almost like another chapter of marriage. A lot of you might be spending more time together than you probably thought ever would happen, right? Because you've been working, possibly both of you, that whole time. So you want to make sure you've had kind of really those 4 conversations I just laid out in this video. And again, there's going to be a part B and C to this video to go over the other stages. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and click over and check out some of our other videos. And again, there's some coming on here each week, as well as we have a radio show you can check out that's also uploaded here on the YouTube channel. Hope you have a great day.